Welcome in, everyone. Hello, Temple Time. Good to see you again, my friend. I wanted to do a brief live to share something with you guys something that's happened recently. It's been really exciting for me. Hey, Melanie. So I was wrong yesterday. I announced in a soul group meeting yesterday that I was not going to be going live today, that I was taking the day off. But I was incorrect. I am, in fact, not taking the day off. I am working on my spirituality. So here I am. Had some interesting things happen, and I felt called to share this with you guys. Spider Monkey. Hello, my friend. So the last time I went live, I shared with you guys a very interesting synchronicity that has happened to me. In fact, every day for the last, I think I'm on my fourth day now, I have had a really powerful synchronicity. Not a simple thing, but something that's really snapped my attention, where Spirit's trying to say, hey, are you paying attention? Thank you, Raul. Good to see you, my friend. So, for those of you who were not here and did not get to hear this story, I'm going to give you a brief synopsis of that synchronicity that I had the last time, and then I want to tell you about what happened last night. So, a couple of days ago, I was doing an astrological reading for one of our beloved members of the Soul Group, Spider Monkey, on the topic of spiritual gifts. This was the first time I had ever done this type of reading before. And the way it came about seemed kind of like it was led by Spirit. So I don't know if you remember I'm sure you remember me giving you that reading. Well, thank you, Melanie. You were not there whenever I came on the live and shared the synchronicity, Spider Monkey, so you might like this. In your reading, there was talks about a latent psychic potential and a profound psychic ability, but buried deeply embedded within the subconsciousness. And my recommendation to you was to get some of those flashcards, and I still don't remember what they're called, but they were designed by a psychologist and are basically used to work with symbols and speak to the subconscious mind, because symbology is the language of our subconsciousness. And by using these flashcards and working with them, you can develop extrasensory perception. You can reawaken that faculty within yourself and help to dig that out, right? So my recommendation to you was to get a set of those cards. And some of them, there's like, the symbols are, I think, a star, a square, a cross, or a plus symbol, some wavy lines, and I don't remember what the other symbol is. I think there's 5 different symbols. But anyway, I told you that, and then I decided I was going to call it a day because I was a little bit wiped out. And so I decided to kick back in bed and find a good movie to watch. I scrolled through probably 100 different movies and nothing sounded good to me. And suddenly I seen one. I actually told myself in my head, I was like, whatever, at this point I give up. I'm just going to start something randomly and doze off while it plays. And I seen one that said it starred Keanu Reeves, and I'd never heard of it before, so I was like, okay, I'll give that a shot. It was a movie called The Gift. So I started it, didn't think anything about it, and then the opening scene, within 30 seconds of starting this movie, is a woman sitting at a table, pulling out these cards, the exact same cards I just got done telling you about. And it was like being slapped in the face by Spirit, being like, hello, are you paying attention there? It was way more than just a coincidence. It was a very powerful synchronicity. And in fact, the entire movie was a powerful synchronicity. And several different ways the Zener cards. Okay, thank you for that. That movie was spirit communicating to me very, very powerfully, and trying, because my intuition for a long time had been trying to tell me, look, the more you pay attention to this and act upon your intuition, the stronger it becomes. I know that. I talk to you guys about that all the time. But again, there's a big difference between talking the talk and walking the walk, right? And I listen to my intuition, but not always. There's certain things that my intuition has been trying to tell me for a long time, and I am stubborn at times. I know that that is hard to imagine me as a stubborn person, but sometimes I can be a little stubborn, right? So, anyway, lessons learned from that. Spirit was trying to communicate with me. Now, let me show you what happened last night. So, on the live, I decided to read a chapter of this beautiful Dolores Cannon book with you guys, which is The Search for Hidden Sacred Knowledge. And something that I came across while reading that was that I noticed the last chapter, which I hadn't got to finish yet. I was reading it yesterday evening, and then I realized, oh no, it's time to go live. So I had to put in my bookmark and put the book down, which was kind of sad, right? But I went live anyway. And then I read the chapter to everyone on here, and then I said, this next chapter is all about attempts to hide the true original teachings of Yeshua. And I'm really excited about that. And I didn't really mention anything about the information that I was going over, because I said I wanted to finish reading it first, and then I would share it with you guys. Well, little did I know there was another big synchronicity coming up in that. So I read the final chapter about Yeshua, his secret teachings. And to give you the brief synopsis of that, there's a woman who was part of a class demonstration where Dolores Cannon was giving a demonstration before this entire class with dozens of people in it about how QHHT could work, her quantum healing hypnosis technique. And she selected at random a member of the audience to come up, and it was a woman. I don't remember her name. Yeah, me too, Spider Monkey. It's amazing. So she gets this woman under this deep regressive hypnosis, and she begins recalling a past life that she shared with Yeshua. She was one of the disciples, and she was telling about the crucifixion and how she had to hurry up and get away from the crucifixion. And Dolores Cannon was like, why? Why do you have to hurry up and get away? And she said, because of the other disciples. Not all of them are happy that we are here, because Yeshua had numerous female disciples that he gave a secret teaching to, you might say, one that was not for everybody else. Certain members of the male disciples found out about this, and they were not very happy about it because they had been receiving extra attention. So they fled immediately after the crucifixion, because they knew that not all, but certain ones of these men were very jealous, and they were going to try to get their hands on the secret teachings that they had written down and destroy them. So they escaped to France. And to summarize this without drawing it out forever, this group of women landed in France in a town called Marseille, and they lived out the remainder of their years there, and essentially all died of old age, but not before they decided to hide the writings that they had got from Yeshua, that they had written down the secret teachings, because they knew that this was going to be incredibly important and they didn't want it to get lost. Of course, it doesn't really reveal, at least not in this book, where that was at. But I went, after I finished the live with you guys and I finished reading my chapters, reading that part, I got to thinking about, I've got another book that I have bought probably a year ago that is on my must-read shelf that I've not got to read yet. And it is called The Drama of the Lost Disciples, I think is what it's called. Actually, let me see if I can find it real quick. Yes, it's called The Drama of the Lost Disciples. I've not got to read this yet, but this immediately popped into my mind, and I was thinking about, wow, how awesome would it be to travel to France, to go to Marseille, and find where these, and by the way, there is a really old church, one of the oldest churches known to exist anywhere in Europe, there in Marseille, and they believe that they have possibly even the burial place of Mary Magdalene there, amongst others. And I was thinking about how amazing it would be to get to go to that place and try to uncover some of these truths, and maybe even the lost teachings of Yeshua. And it was getting pretty late at night, and I decided I was going to start something to watch while my wife and I ate. We was going to sit there and watch a movie. Interesting, Dapper Pappy. Okay. So here was the synchronicity. I was trying to find something that both I and my wife would watch, because we have pretty different tastes whenever it comes to things to watch. So I settled on I think it was a drama/thriller movie, something I'd never heard of before. It has Matt Damon in it, and it was called Stillwater. And I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. That sounds like something that we would watch. And the opening scene of that movie is, guess what? Anybody want to take any guesses what was happening in that movie? He traveled from the Midwest of the United States to France, to Marseille, specifically to that location. And it was, again, within the opening scene of that movie. You can try to pick that apart and say that's a coincidence, or the subconscious mind picked that out because you were thinking about Marseille, France, or whatever. But this has happened to me every single day for the last several days in a row, numerous times. Anytime that happens to me, that is the divine saying, are you paying attention yet? It is definitely a direct message. There's no doubt about that. And in fact, okay, you guys are going to begin thinking that I'm making this up, but I don't care. I don't care if I look crazy. I'm sharing it with you anyway. Right before I went live, like within 2 minutes before I went live, I picked up this book again because I was going to share this story with you guys. That was my plan. And I opened it up to a page that I have not read before. I just opened it up. And there's one little section here I'm going to show you guys. See this section down here at the bottom? This is the page I opened up to. Let me read this to you guys. Several of you will get the significance of this, but not all of you. I'll have to give you the background to this after I read it. Crystals are the most abundant mineral found on Earth. It is interesting that most of the crystals sold around the world come from Arkansas and Brazil. I discovered that where I live, in northern Arkansas, there's a huge deposit of crystals directly under this area. There is a public crystal mine located south of here near Mount Ida, where anyone can come and pick up the crystals off the ground. During a session, I was told, you only think that you randomly chose to live in this part of Arkansas, but you were put there for a reason. You needed the crystal energy for your work. And I just got covered head to toe in truth bumps whenever I read that to you. Now let me share the background information with you guys for why that's so significant. Several of you guys have heard this story, but for those of you that have not, I want to share it again. About 2 years ago, I was stuck in a job that I was not happy with at all. For like the 18 years before that, I had always had a very low wage job that was not making it. It was not cutting it. I have a big family. I was always struggling to get our needs met. And then I found a job working at a company called DRS, a defense contractor. And at first, it seemed like an excellent job because they were paying me 3 or 4 times anything I'd ever made before. And it was intellectually challenging, which was good for me. But very quickly, I started to feel very wrong about working there because as a defense contractor, they make machines of war. Every single thing that we made there was a machine that would be used to make war on somebody. And these machines of war were sold all across the world to the highest bidder, basically. It started to weigh very heavily on my soul because I felt like not only was this job not in alignment with me, but it went directly against my values, my personal values. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in taking another person's life. That's my truth, right? So I'm not casting judgment on anybody else. I'm just saying that was my truth. I stayed in that job for 5 years because we needed the money and I didn't know what else to do. It started to weigh so heavily on my soul that it became unbearable anymore. I got to where I was having to drag myself into work and I was just absolutely miserable. And then I decided to have a spiritual guidance session with a woman that I had been introduced to who specialized in communication with your spirit guides. The recommendation that they gave me before I even got to explain the situation to them or to her was, you need to get away from that job immediately. Don't hesitate. Don't sit here and make plans. It's critical that you get away from that job immediately. It is detrimental to your soul, and you are amassing negative karma for yourself by working there. And immediately, as soon as she told me that, I knew it was the truth. I had already felt that way before she said it. So I did. I got away from that job. But in that same session, they recommended us to move to a different location. And they specifically said this area of north central Arkansas. And they gave very specific instructions for where it needed to be. It needed to be south of the Missouri line. It needed to be relatively central, but north of the Arkansas River and not too far west. So that really narrowed down the area of where we were supposed to go. And we found what seemed to be the perfect spot whenever we started looking there and decided, the heck with it. I'm going to listen. I'm going to do this. So we sold a lot of stuff, including our house, and we moved out of state to Arkansas where we knew nobody. We had no connections, and we moved to this area. And my spirit guides told me specifically, this is the area where you are meant to build your empire, is what they said. And they said that the work that I was going to do later on in my life would be incredibly important, but that it needed to happen here. This was specifically where it was meant to happen at. And they didn't ever really elaborate on why. After about a year of being here, it was not going very well because there was no jobs in this area. None. Not even working at McDonald's or delivering pizzas. There were just no jobs. And we were really struggling to make ends meet. Not only did we move into an environment and situation that's apparently ideal for me to do what I need to be doing. But we moved into an environment and situation to where I would have absolutely no choice but to do what I'm doing right now in order to be able to provide for my family. I was nowhere near brave enough to do that on my own, right? I quit my job there and we moved here under the assumption that I would be able to find a job because I've never in my life struggled to find a job. Where I've come from, I could have any job before the sun went down on any given day. And we moved here and there were absolutely no jobs. So I had to make one for myself. And that moved me into alignment with my purpose, with my calling, which is making spirituality my profession and my job. And so whenever I just read this section that I just read to you guys out of this Dolores Cannon book that I just opened up to, I moved to that exact same area before I even had heard, and before I even knew about Dolores Cannon and the crystals under Arkansas and all of that stuff. And this is saying she was directed to go there. She thought that she just randomly picked that area, but she moved to that area specifically because of this tremendous vortex of energy that's generated by the massive amount of crystals that are under the ground here, and that energy was necessary for her to fulfill her contract, which is this massive body of knowledge that most of us know about through the QHHT material. And so I feel like I was led specifically to that area as well without even being aware of it. And I've often wondered why, why here? Why would they say specifically right here? There has to be something to it. I think I just got my answer as to why. Absolutely, Cheryl. Yeah, that was something that, it was definitely something that took a leap of faith, I will say that. So anyway, that is what's been going on with me, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And I have to be completely open and honest with you. I don't know for sure what the heck is going on. I don't know why these powerful synchronicities have started happening for me every single day. But I feel like it's important to acknowledge them and share them so that everybody else can see and understand that these things happen and they're not meant to be dismissed or tried to be rationalized or explained away. They're meant to direct our attention to something. Trying to subscribe and can't. I'm not sure what's going on with that, Rosie, but I can try to help you off the live. I'm not sure how to do it on here. I don't know why it would do that. Temple Time, unfortunately, the last I talked to her, she decided to stop doing those readings. I think that she started to have not doubts about doing it, but she started to feel like that she was infringing upon people's free will because the information that she shared was 100% on point. She has a profound gift and ability to be able to connect with the spirit guides of other people. I cannot even begin to tell you how many things that she revealed to me or shared to me through my spirit guides that there's no way in the world she would have known. There's just absolutely no way in the world she would have known. So she definitely has a true gift and ability in that area. But I think that she feared that by sharing certain information and recommendations with people like she did with me, that she was influencing them in such a way that could infringe upon their free will. So she decided to stop doing that type of work, which is very unfortunate because I think it's very beneficial. I am very grateful that I had the benefit of being able to work with her for sure. Brock, I'm sorry that you're late, my friend. You're not late. This was not a planned live at all. In fact, I told everyone I would not be live today, but I had some powerful synchronicities that I needed to share with everybody. I will upload this to YouTube and share it on my YouTube channel for anybody who wants to rewatch this. Thank you, Rosie. I'm glad that worked for you. Thank you for that support, my friend. So that's really all I got to say there. I'm not sure. My mind is a little blown, if I'm to be honest with you guys. I know that these things happen. I've experienced way too many things in my life to be dismissive of them. But for things on that scale and magnitude to happen, bam, 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 every single day like that for me, it's a little awe-inspiring. So the other thing that I wanted to share you, and I don't know if this has any relation on this or not, but I have heard that the veil is very thin during this period of time as we approach the Lionsgate portal, especially today, the day of the new moon in Leo. It is supposed to be a marker of the veil being thin that separates the conscious from the unconscious. And so, is that part of it? I don't know. All I can tell you is, sure, I've experienced things like this throughout my life, but I've never experienced anything quite like what's happened to me this past week, to where every single day there is a powerful synchronicity like that is, in truth, revealing tons of information and insight to me. Absolutely, Temple Time, absolutely. My whole life has been full of things like this, but I'm a lot better at acknowledging them and paying attention to them now. Okay, we're not going to get political there. All right. There was something else I wanted to share with you guys, and now I can't remember what it is. I'm sure it's going to come to me. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to share is the last reading that I did for anybody was actually for Tony. I don't know if he's in here or not. It was also a spiritual gift astrology reading. And one of the things that came out through his reading was that he has a very profound connection to the spiritual dimensions of life, but it is so deeply embedded within his subconsciousness, it is prevalent while he is unconscious. And this was a gift that followed him into this lifetime from his past life. And it was associated with the sleep state. And so while he was asleep, he might gain all of this insight and information about regular waking life, and then wake up and have no idea about it. It just kind of comes out. And he told me, well, I hardly ever remember my dreams. And I told him, well, I understand what that's like. I really struggle to remember my dreams most times too. And then I shared some tips to help recall your dreams, primarily dream journaling and setting the intention before you go to sleep. That way one of your last thoughts before you go to sleep is dream recall. And then one of your first thoughts as soon as you wake up is dream recall. And last night, I remembered a dream. And I think that it's not just that I remembered a dream, it was the way that it happened was really amusing. It was a dream of me working back at my very first job years and years ago. And one of my old coworkers was there. There's Tony. Welcome in, my friend. And he had his back turned to me, and I could sense that he was upset. And whenever he turned around, I could tell he had been crying. And I tried to make light of the situation to try to, lighten his mood. So I made a joke about it. And the joke that I made was, well, if you think that that's embarrassing, I'm so scarred from the stress of this job that I'm having a stress dream about this 20 years after I worked there. And then we kind of had a good laugh about it. And then I had realized, while in this dream state, I realized and recognized that I was asleep and having a dream. And not just a dream, but that it was a stress dream about the stressful environment and situation, the very first job that I had, to the point I made a joke about it. And then I had that realization in my dream that, hey, you're dreaming, you can do whatever you want. There was a question I had always wanted to ask that friend that I have not spoken to probably 17 years, something like that. And the thought popped into my head, since you can do anything you want now, why don't you ask him this question and you can get the answer to it? And then I woke up. I really wish that I had finished that dream, or at least had the memory of finishing that dream, because that would have been amazing to actually have gotten an answer, a response out of that. Yeah, it was definitely lucid awareness. But for somebody like me who very, very, very rarely remembers dreams, maybe 3-4 times a year, and that was the third time this week that I remembered a dream, and that it was a lucid dream. For me, I think that might be connected with these powerful synchronicities as well. It was a personal question, Cheryl. It would be inappropriate for me to share it on here, unfortunately. The important thing is I did not get a response to it, or at least I don't consciously remember or recall getting that. Victoria, that is an excellent question. One, unfortunately, that requires a very long-winded response. Many moons ago, I had my first spiritual awakening experience. A very powerful and profound spiritual awakening experience, to where the person I was with at the time, my ex, was asleep, completely asleep and unconscious, and had been so for a few hours. And whenever I went to lay down and go to sleep, she sat up and with her eyes closed started talking to me. And this evolved into a face-to-face conversation with her higher self, with spirit through her, that she was completely unaware of. And she showed me, her higher self showed me, visions of the future and some of my past lives, as well as charging me with my calling in this lifetime. And there's a whole lot to that story. This was not a one-off encounter. This happened several times a week, like 3 or 4 times a week, for an hour or 2 at a time for upwards of a year. So a whole lot of conversations happened there. Thank you for that, Tweety. We talked about a whole lot of things. And she always called me Maggie. That was what she always called me. And I asked at one point if that was my name, why she was calling me that. And she said basically it was a title and it means God's warrior. And that's who I was at the soul level. It was in my blood that I was one of God's warriors. And so that's where Maggie comes from. And the rising part is obvious. It's kind of symbolic to me of taking up my calling and doing what I have been asked to do. And so Maggie rising. Not quite as long-winded as I thought it would be. Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that. I feel that way too, but in a different way. It was a pretty unique experience. There's not, I think, one person that I've ever talked to has had a similar experience as that. It was very unique in the way it happened. And what was really odd about it is, at first, the first 3 or 4 times that happened, it was completely spontaneous. But at one point, a thought occurred to me to lay down on the ground while my ex was asleep and meditate on calling her. And I decided to try to do that, and to my surprise, it worked. And so I discovered that every time I wanted to, I could initiate this encounter and conversation with Spirit, with her higher self, as long as she was asleep, by laying down and meditating and calling her by name. That was truly astounding. I even had to do experiments about that to make sure that, to convince myself that, there was no trickery or anything going on. But it was evident. She was revealing stuff to me that there's no way. I mean, revealing the future, things that have happened, things that happened shortly after she told me, things that are still happening now to this day. So I have no doubt in my mind, and it was a very, very spiritual experience. I felt as if I was in the presence of the divine whenever this happened. It was a very powerful experience. Had you not heard that story before, Honeybee? I guess it has been a while since I've shared that story. What is your calling? That's even a much longer-winded answer, my friend. I'm getting pretty good at summarizing things, though, because I've talked about it hundreds of times on here. So it is something that I'm getting a little bit better and more concise with my wording on. At the time, I didn't understand what my calling really was. I was told, basically, after a vision of a future event, I was told that I was meant to save God's people. And at that time, I misunderstood what that meant. I really thought that it meant that there was this future event that was going to happen, and I was meant to save people from it. But now I understand, and I realize that you can't save anybody, no matter who you are, because we are mortal, right? It is part of the human condition. At some point, everyone is going to pass away from this existence and move on to the spirit realm, or be reincarnated again. And there's no way to do that. But what I have realized through the last 20 years of studying and maturing spiritually and opening up to certain things, that what was meant and what I was shown was a glimpse of a probable future for the earth, and more specifically for the third dimensional awareness of earth, a future cataclysm that is part of a natural 12,000 year cycle that happens like clockwork on this planet, that resets civilization there. And that is way too big of a topic for me to go into right now, but it's something I talk about a lot on here. But what I discovered is that that's only half the equation. The other part of the equation is that the sun is the engine that drives this mechanism of change, of all of the earth changes. That's why the climate is shifting. That's why storms are intensifying. That's why there's sinkholes opening up and more earthquakes and volcanoes, and why the magnetic poles of the planet are shifting. The other side of that is the same energy that's causing those physical changes on the earth is changing us spiritually and energetically. It is driving our spiritual evolution and awakening and eventually ascension. And that's what Dolores Cannon talked about with ascending to the new earth. And we're basically, as a collective, at a crossroads, at a fork in the road. And every single human being is being tasked with making a decision right now. Either we can continue on the path that we've been walking and contribute to this imbalance and an unnatural way of living, where our way of life results in the raping, pillaging, and plundering of the earth in the name of greed. Or we can take the other path, and we can decide to be part of the solution, and we can move into harmony with nature, and help to restore that imbalance. And that is the path of ascension, of spiritually awakening into the next golden age, the age of Aquarius and the 5D consciousness. And so my calling is to be a facilitator for that, to share the truth, and to help expedite that spiritual awakening in any way that I possibly can. The exact specifics of what that looks like, I'm still to this day working to figure that out. And bit by bit, piece by piece, is being revealed to me. Dolores Cannon also said if we knew what our purpose was, it would be poison to us, basically. I can completely get behind that, because I have to tell you, as beautiful and powerful as this spiritual awakening experience was for me 20 years ago, and as powerful as it was to have the ability to have a face-to-face conversation with Spirit directly and ask anything that I wanted to, it really put me through the ringer, because immediately after that, I experienced a powerful dark night of the soul. And I felt so lost. It was the biggest tower moment I've ever experienced in my life. The foundations of my life at that point were crumbled, and my tower came down hard. I didn't know what to believe, because I was raised in a conservative Christian household. I believed in the teachings of Jesus and Christianity. And then here was this experience of psychic phenomena warning about the future, and being shown past lives and all sorts of things. And so for over a decade, I felt alone. I felt like I was groping in the darkness, searching for every tiny little nugget of truth. But I think I was told specifically at that time, because that was part of my calling, was to wrestle with spirituality in Christianity and trying to reconcile the two. And that has been a huge factor in my life, because I really wrestled with that. I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books, and I am now entirely convinced that the doctrine of mainstream Christianity is a bastardization of the truth of what Yeshua really brought to the world. Thank you, Brock. That is much, much needed. I honestly believe that Yeshua brought the truth to us, the truth of our nature, and a blueprint for ascension of how we could walk in his footsteps. And unfortunately, that truth was twisted and distorted into a system of control to put power in the hands of a few people. There is a very esoteric nature of the true teachings of Yeshua, including a belief in reincarnation. That's biblical, and it's in there in the scripture. I spent a lot of time digging that out, but I have to tell you, there's quite a bit of evidence to support that. Also, a belief in the law of one. That is all throughout the scripture that Jesus taught, that we are all one, that we are all a part of God. And so, and there's a whole lot more to it than that, but that, and what Dolores Cannon said about our purpose being revealed to us too early can actually poison us. I can really see that. And because in many ways it did to me. In many ways, I stopped living because of this. It became the number one thing in my life, and it was hard for me to go about my regular everyday existence because that's all I could think about. And then every day, basically, since then that I've woke up, I've wondered, is this the day? When is these things going to happen? But it was given to me when it was, because part of my contract and my mission in this lifetime is to wrestle with those concepts, and I believe help bring the true teachings of Yeshua to the world, or at least spread enough light on that topic for people to begin to question the official narrative and start to investigate and research for themselves. Guys, I apologize. I know I missed so many comments in there. Once you know the truth will set you free. What does ascension in the 5D mean? That is another big topic, my friend. You are full of big topics. Okay, let me get through my comments real quick, and then we'll talk about that. What about the Trinity? The Trinity was something that was added in later at the Council of Nicaea, and it was a misunderstanding. Jesus never said, Yeshua never said, I am God. He never said, I am God. If he was God, who was he praying to? Right? He was the firstborn over all of creation. In fact, he reincarnated all throughout biblical scripture. That is also in the scripture. His first incarnation was Adam, the firstborn over all of creation. Even Paul recognized that Yeshua was the reincarnation of Adam and calls him the last Adam, and says that's why he was capable of fulfilling the law, because sin entered the world through the first Adam and it was nullified through the last Adam. All throughout scripture that is mentioned in there. Yeshua even said, has it not been written that ye are gods? He tried to get people to understand that we are all one. All life is connected, that there is one energy that animates all life. It is consciousness, and that the sum total of that energy of consciousness is God, and it is what animates all life. That is the same reason that he said, trying to explain this very deep concept to his disciples at that time. He said, you seen me naked and you didn't clothe me. You seen me hungry and you didn't feed me. And his disciples was like, when, Lord, when do we do these terrible things? And he said, I tell you the truth, as you do to the lowest among you, you do unto me and unto the Father. Why? Why would he say that? How could that make sense? He was trying to get them to understand that we are all one, and the lowest among you has got God in them, right? The punk kid that cuts you off on the freeway and almost causes you to wreck, yeah, that's God too. You know, the person who knocks you down, tries to steal your purse, your next door neighbor, your dog, everything is a part of the same vast sea of consciousness. And Yeshua is trying to explain that all throughout his ministry. And that was misunderstood. It was misunderstood. And what came out of that was the Trinity. Morning's Joy, I second that 100%. In fact, that is pin-worthy. That is the root of this issue, and that was something I was completely unaware of until I really started doing the research, is that almost all of mainstream Christianity, the doctrine, is Pauline doctrine. It came from Paul. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but it is important to know that Paul never met Yeshua. He was not a disciple of Yeshua. He was not taught directly by Yeshua. He never met him. And then he goes about proselytizing his version of the teachings of Christ all throughout the Roman Empire. He was very well connected, very well educated. He spoke many languages, and he quickly amassed a large following. The original followers of Christ was headed up by Yeshua's brother, James the Just, and they kept the original teachings of Jesus until Paul and his followers kind of came down into Jerusalem, and there was this big confrontation, and there was disagreement between the teachings because they were teaching two different versions. That's when the original Christians fled. There was a small band of them. James the Just was actually executed. A small band of the original disciples actually was put on board of a ship and set to sea without a rudder or sail, and the majority of the followers fled into Ethiopia, down into Africa, and that's why it is the longest continuation of the original teachings of Yeshua in Ethiopia. But what was handed down and what spread all across the globe was Pauline doctrine, Paul's version of those teachings. And that's why it was so different from the original. And I'm not saying that there's no kernels of truth embedded in any of that. Paul done the world a great service, believe it or not, because if it was not for Paul, Christianity most likely would have died off a very, very long time ago. But what I'm saying is that because he never actually learned directly from Yeshua, his version of those teachings was a little bit different from the original, especially on topics such as reincarnation, the more mystical, esoteric teachings of Yeshua. Yes, I am definitely an empath, my friend. Okay, I'm trying to get caught back up with you guys. Oh, okay. Thank you for telling me that, Mary. It does get confusing sometimes. How do we know if any of this happened? I'm not sure exactly which part you're asking me about, Victoria. Honeybee, that's something that isn't common knowledge for a lot of people, but the majority of the books, not just the Synoptic Gospels or the New Testament, but even the much older books, the vast majority of them were written by somebody completely different than who they claimed to be. And that's because they knew if they used their real name, it wouldn't be afforded as much weight as what it actually was. So oftentimes authors would write under a synonym or pseudonym. And they would say, they would claim to be some person who was revered, an important prophet or what have you, and then it would be immediately accepted into the official canon. It would be much more widely read and accepted. So that was the norm for people to write certain books under someone else's name, and then it just be accepted as something else. But as far as the Gnostic aspect of it, there is a pretty strong connection between the original teachings of Yeshua and Gnosticism. Not to be confused with modern Gnosticism, the original Gnosticism, which had been lost for quite some time. And Edgar Cayce actually said that Gnosticism was the closest to the original teachings of Yeshua. Whether or not that's true, I can't tell you, but... You most likely hear numerous kids, my friend. I have an army of children. I actually have 11 children. I am married. I've yet to meet a truly righteous, just, benevolent Christian. I think that there is an important reason for that. And I'm not saying that they don't exist, but there are many inherent contradictions within mainstream Christian doctrine. It is chock full of contradictions. And it's not so much scriptural as it is doctrine. There is contradictions within scripture, but the majority of it comes through the interpretation of it in the doctrine, which is why, Yeshua was always like, do not judge, period. You are not supposed to judge. And that was twisted and distorted into, as a Christian, you have an obligation to judge other people. If you see somebody in error, it is your duty to judge that person and show them the error of their ways so that they don't burn in an eternal lake of fire. But is that what Jesus said? Really? No. He said, judge not, lest ye be judged. And he also said, you will be judged by the manner in which you judge others. There's a really important reason for that. But that is one of the central tenets of mainstream Christian doctrine, and it doesn't really have true scriptural basis for it. There's, unfortunately, plenty of those things. Beck, and that's a really common thing. It's a really common thing. It's starting to become a little bit more widely accepted, beginning to. But it is important to note, you can't, no matter how much you want to get somebody to see something, you cannot force it on them. No matter how much you push or how hard you try, in fact, you will usually wind up pushing them in the other direction. For everything, there is a season. Just like it's not beneficial for you to pick fruit out of season before it is mature and ripe. People awaken to truth when it is their time to awaken to truth, whenever they are mature and ripe and ready for that information and that knowledge. Can you explain the Telegram, please? Okay. Yes, and thank you for pinning that for me. Okay, let me catch up on the comments real quick, and then I will talk about the Telegram app. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you. Okay. Let me wet my whistle. So, we started a inner circle group on the Telegram app because we have several hundred members, a part of this soul group community. And that's what this is. This is a community for anyone and everyone interested in spirituality, looking for somewhere to belong, looking for like-minded individuals to share with, to support them, to share in experience and knowledge and all of those things. This is a safe space, the soul group community, but it has certain limitations on TikTok. Such as you guys trying to converse with me while I'm on a live. You can only put a couple of really brief words in there at a time, and if you try to have a conversation, it gets broken up, and it's not very beneficial that way. There's a lot of limitations. You can't send pictures. You can't send anything outside of TikTok, right? On Telegram, you can do all of that and more. So we started an inner circle group on Telegram that is for those who want to be more involved with the community. If you want to be a part of that, you have to download Telegram on your phone first and set it up. Then once you've done that, if you go to my profile, there's a link in my bio, and I believe the very top button is to join the Telegram group. And in there, the group stays connected 24/7. You don't have to wait to find me live the next time. You can have conversations in there anytime, day or night. Send the group pictures. You can send videos, voice messages. You can share entire PDF books if you want to, and anything in between. So that is there, and it is available for anybody who wants to be a part of that. And if you have issues, if you have trouble joining that, just let me know. He was the most revered of later Gnostics and inspiration of two of the most influential schools of Gnosticism. Honeybee, I'm going to have to research that connection because I had not heard that before. That is a really interesting connection, though. I mean, especially given the information of what Edgar Cayce said. Do you believe that practicing alchemy is a sin? No. No, I do not. What I do believe is this is where things get muddled. Okay? The importance isn't what I believe. The important thing is what you believe. If you believe that something is wrong at a foundational level within yourself, within your being, if you have accepted something as a truth, such as if I was to do alchemy, it would be a sin. If you've accepted that within yourself, that is a judgment. And that's exactly what Yeshua told us to avoid, because when you do that, you are binding yourself to that thing. And so you are saying to yourself, if I do that, I will hold myself accountable for it. Because when we pass away, when our body passes away, and we move over to the other side of the veil, I don't believe that we are faced with a parental figure sitting on a throne in the sky that's going to cast judgment upon us. I think we judge ourselves using the yardstick of the way that we judge throughout our life. That will be the manner in which we are judged, but we judge ourselves. And that's why Yeshua said, judge not, lest ye be judged. Because then that frees you from that cycle of judgment. The same thing with hell. People ask me all the time, do I think hell is real? No, I do not believe hell is real. There is proof that hell is a new addition, that it was actually named after a pit outside the city walls of Jerusalem where they used to throw their garbage and their refuse. It was not ever a part of the original scriptures, right? It was something that was dreamed up and used to control people through fear. It wasn't a part of the original teachings, but that doesn't truly matter. What matters is what you believe. In fact, last night on the live, I shared a part of this book by Dolores Cannon where an individual remembered or recalled a past life where they actually experienced a type of hell because they believed that to be the case. They believed after they died they were going to hell because somebody had programmed them to believe that. But then they experienced they didn't have to be there and they were freed from it. And then they're like, they lied to me. They made me believe this and it caused my soul to be trapped in this place that was actually just a construct of my mind. There was no need for me to need to go there. You know, I just believed it was a real thing. So I held myself to that. So to me, the truth is, it matters what you believe and nothing else. I personally don't believe that hell is a real thing. I think it was something dreamed up to control people through fear. The same thing with the concept of sin to an extent. I think we have universal cause and effect. We have energetic equations. Each of us are given a set amount of energy each and every day. That energy is a part of God because all things are a part of God. And we each wake up every day with free will. And we get to make the decisions how we decide to use that energy each and every day. If we're using that energy in some way to make the world a better place, to be helpful, to be benevolent, to be compassionate and loving, or work to just generally support the creative forces, then the result of that energetic equation is an increase. We receive more of those good things of life. But if we choose to use that energy for destructive purposes, for selfish desires, for greed, for corruption, for causing other people harm, then we get the result of that kind of an equation. And that's where karma steps in. Karma is the result of the balance of those equations, right? But I think the key is your judgment, how you deem those things to be. There are certain what I consider to be inviolable laws that are universal constants. And that says if you use energy, if you manipulate energy, then special rules apply to you. If you manipulate energy to do good for the world, pure, absolute, nothing but absolute good, then you receive the benefits of that threefold. But if you do something through manipulation of energy and it harms somebody, even if you didn't necessarily set out to harm that person, then I think that you can receive the balance of that equation threefold as well, which is why I think any form of magic arts are best avoided at all costs, because the results of those equations are threefold to you. The way I see things is that what is termed magic or esoteric sciences is simply a forgotten science. It is the manipulation of energy. It is the things that used to be part of the understood science of the way that the world truly worked. But we've long forgotten those things, and they're slowly being remembered. Okay, I apologize. I know that was a really long-winded answer. Now I'm going to try to catch back up with you guys. How do you get a reading? Okay, that's probably, someone probably already answered you, but if you go to my website, magirising.com, all the information to do that is on my website. And there is a link in my bio to that, by the way. Oh yeah, for you guys trying to join Telegram, the Telegram group, just set up Telegram on your phone first. Don't try to search it out and find it. It's almost impossible that way. Once you've got it set up, the easiest way is either to go to my website or go to my page here on TikTok. If you go to the website, at the very top of the page, there is a line under my logo of all of the different social media icons. There's like a YouTube, a TikTok, a Facebook, and then there's a little blue arrow, kind of looks like a, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like a mouse pointer. I can't remember what that's actually called. That's the Telegram link. If you click on that, it automatically adds you to the group. Thank you, honey. Let me write that down. That definitely is right up my alley. Jesus and the Lost Goddess. Okay. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to try to get caught up on the comments here. What is loosh? It is basically a bleed off of your vital life force through negative energy. Whenever you fear, whenever you dread, whenever any of the low vibrational energies, even such as depression, those sorts of things, loosh energy is basically the low vibrational manifestation of your life force. And it's based on the concept that there are entities that feed off of that loosh energy, like a vampire, that they can attach onto those things and slowly bleed off your life force by doing that. And that's how they feed. That's how they nourish themselves. Victoria, the yet part of your statement, that's the key, yet. It can be difficult to grasp the scope of karma, right? Because we are so enmeshed in matter and material, we can't see the forest for the trees. we have blinders on. We see the immediate world around us. We don't see the big picture. Oftentimes, people, whenever it comes time to try to understand karma and the way that it works, we have this false belief that we are born with a blank slate. But the truth of the matter is, the vast majority of us are reborn with amnesia, and we have no idea the many things that transpired in our past lives, much less what transpired in another person's past lives. You might experience an individual that's been downright nasty to you. Maybe they've done something to take advantage of you or ripped you off, and then you don't see anything happening in their life, so you think, well, karma's obviously not real, or else they would have been punished for that, right? It seems like all of these good things are happening in their life. You have no idea the lifetimes that they lived before this. Maybe they were a very dedicated monk for 12 lifetimes in a row, and they brought positive, uplifting love and enlightenment to the world everywhere that they went. And once they were born into this environment and situation, they made a misstep and lost their way a little bit. So they've got lifetimes of accumulation of positive karma behind them. That doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen to that individual, or that they won't receive the balance of their equation. It might also be that those things will be paid in the next lifetime. The fact is, we can't see the forest for the trees. We can only see life through our perspective, and oftentimes we don't get to see the big helicopter view of things. Although sometimes it happens very quickly. But I don't think that it's necessarily the case all the time. Astrology, karma, and transformation. Man, I'm gonna have to build a new bookshelf. That definitely sounds like one that I need. If I could just read a book and then let go of it, I wouldn't have that problem, but I can't. That is the one thing that I really struggle with attachment on, is my books. But thank you for that. Astrology, karma, and transformation. Definitely right up my alley. Exactly, Star Muse. Karma is not about punishment. It is absolutely not. This is a school. We are here to learn. Karma is education. That is simply all it is. Do you believe the Philosopher's Stone exists? It depends on what definition or concept you have of the Philosopher's Stone. I honestly think that the Philosopher's Stone is primarily metaphorical, and that it's not so much an actual physical stone that allows you to turn base metals into gold. I think that, in truth, what it really is knowledge. And it is the ability to harness the powers of transmutation in our life, and through that power of transmutation to take something such as lead, something that seems to be basically worthless, maybe even unhealthy and toxic, and to restructure that through our perception, through our understanding, and transmute it into something positive, into maybe a learning experience, or maybe a stepping stone towards your path of ascension, that sort of thing. So I think primarily that's what the Philosopher's Stone is all about. It's about the ability and formulation for that process of transmutation. So more allegorical than anything. But saying that, that doesn't mean that there's not an actual physical stone that was used to teach those concepts of transmutation. Oftentimes I think that there is a physical thing out there, not just with the Philosopher's Stone, but with a lot of things. Most legends, most stories that have been handed down through the centuries that are believed to be myth or legend have some basis in truth, that there is a truth that's attached to that, and maybe it's changed a little bit over time, maybe it's altered, but that don't mean it don't exist. A lot of things are metaphoric. Yeah, but I don't. The true answer with that and all things is I don't know, right? The answer should be always I don't know. Even if we think that we know, the answer is most likely we don't really know, right? Unless you've got the Philosopher's Stone in your possession and you've seen it work, you know. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and sign off of here for tonight. I just wanted to come on here briefly and share these experiences with you. I'm glad I stuck around for a little bit because I've really enjoyed these conversations with everyone. I'm going to download this live and upload it to my YouTube channel so that anybody who's not got to catch the beginning, especially the beginning part of this live, is where all the good stuff was at. If you guys have not followed me on YouTube, please do that. That will really help me to reach a wider audience and to get my content out there. There is a link in my bio to the YouTube channel or on my website at magirising.com. Thank you, Ali. I appreciate that. So thank each and every one of you guys for being here, for bringing your energy to this fantastic soul group collective. It is an honor to be a part of this. This truly is an amazing blessing, and I want to thank each and every one of you for that. I will see everybody tomorrow. Until then, I hope that you make the best of this new moon and work on setting your intentions for the Lionsgate portal, to work on those manifestations, because this is going to be a powerful moment to bring your vision into reality. So I really hope that you guys work on that. Victoria, I could actually probably do one tomorrow, honestly. So thank you all so much for being here. If anybody's interested in a reading, by the way, and I did not get to have a conversation with you about it, you can send me a message on here and I will talk to you about it and help you get it set up. Until next time, I love each and every one of you guys. I hope everyone has a fantastic night, and I will see you tomorrow. Thank you. Good night.